You know, guys, one thing about XDefiant that has genuinely really impressed me over the last month or so of the game being out is not only how popular it's becoming, but how many people are trying to discredit the achievements that this game is getting and then being proven wrong with actual data. Alright, now we have things like Call of Duty where they're just simply afraid to show their player count, which is odd because it's an extremely popular game, but we know at the end of the day it's because these new games don't compare to the golden era CODs. Alright, that's just a fact. I know that's very tough for a lot of people to hear, but why else would Activision hide the player count in Call of Duty? But yeah, guys, in XDefiant, it's actually the opposite, and what I mean by that is, it's been out for over a month now, and typically, as we're used to, especially in the Call of Duty community, the game, after a month or so, actually starts to die down, alright? In the player count, in quality, in enjoyment, the honeymoon phase is typically over by this point, especially with the new era CODs. And we see constantly over the Steam numbers and Google Trends and the numbers on Twitch and anywhere else that we can see any sort of population for Call of Duty, we just see those numbers decrease and decrease and decrease, and by the 1 month mark, the game is no longer at its peak that they saw at the launch. Now, what's the reason for that? We've talked about it a million times, but I'm not here to talk about why Call of Duty's game dies solely. I also want to talk about how XDefiant seemingly is becoming more popular, contrary to the public opinion, from all of these Call of Duty Gooch-looking morons. Now, unfortunately, with old age, I would think that some people are smarter, but it doesn't matter if you're the youngest guy out here, it doesn't matter if you're in your mid-20s, you could be in your 60s, you're pushing 70, and some people still legitimately think that XDefiant is not impressive, at least in the slightest. And I know Season 1 is officially being revealed today for XDefiant, so I figured this is a perfect time to give out this information for people. So if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave a like, and subscribe if you're new. We're getting really close to 25,000 subscribers. I can't really spoil what's about to happen at 25K, but it's gonna be a very special day here on the channel, guys. So if you'd like to support, it would be greatly appreciated, and thank you guys. And without further ado, this news comes out from XDefiant Alerts. They say, XDefiant is booming. According to Ubisoft's CEO, there have been 11 million unique players in XDefiant. I'm not even gonna bother pronouncing this guy's last name. He says, there's a lot of work to do, but it was able to attract 11 million players in a short time, and that number will increase with all the work done by the team to ensure Season 1 brings a lot more to the existing experience. It's about making the right choices and sticking to them. Guys, this is something that every single development studio should live and die by. Not just Call of Duty, but we could even look at other games. Maybe the developers over at EA, the people at DICE. There are so many development teams and publishers and all these other gaming companies that should follow these ideals. And I'm not here to say Ubisoft is better than Activision. At the end of the day, when it comes to all this corporation stuff, I really genuinely do not care. The only thing I enjoy about this is the fact that Ubisoft is not forcing people to purchase this game. And that's as much corporation talk as you'll get from the Scadmaster, okay? I'm not here to talk politics. All I'm gonna say is, on the corporation side of it, if they're not forcing me to pay to play their game, then as long as they stay out of my way, I'm not really gonna interact with them unless they're being a bunch of scumbags like the people over at Activision. The people crying in Call of Duty over XDefiant, right now they're crying over nothing because their game's being slapped around by XDefiant, alright? We're talking facts here, guys. XDefiant's player count is increasing and Call of Duty's is decreasing over time. I don't want to hear any of these weird arguments about, oh, but XDefiant is free to play. Oh, Call of Duty has so many more players, so there's no way that the player count's gonna keep increasing. I don't care about the implications or any of the context behind it. The fact of the matter is, when Call of Duty fans are talking high and mighty about Call of Duty's numbers, it's always, oh well, numbers don't lie. Now, the roles are reversed, and now you just need to deal with it, alright? I'm sorry to tell you, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but the fact remains. Call of Duty's quality, enjoyment,
player experience and player count is decreasing over time, especially by the 1 month mark, and we have proof of this every single year, XDefiant's numbers are seemingly still increasing over time. And I know this must be incredibly difficult for all of these Call of Duty Gooch lickers to hear. Alright, like just the sound of XDefiant succeeding in any way, shape, or form just has Call of Duty fans on their knees crying. And you can pull up whatever numbers you want on Twitch. You can pull up whatever the viewership is elsewhere, even though this is kind of interesting, but at least for me and a lot of other channels, content on XDefiant seems to be doing a lot better than it is on Call of Duty. What I really wanted to talk about today, guys, was the fact that after a month to a month and a half after XDefiant has launched, the player count is seemingly still increasing. It has not dipped, alright? It hasn't died down yet, and I say yet very loosely because at this point in time, I don't really know when that's gonna happen, because when we look at Call of Duty, I don't care which game it is, with the exception of MW 2019, but we'll talk about that in a second. With the exception of that game, every single Call of Duty by the 1 month mark, the player count drops significantly. A lot of people are not too impressed with the launch, and there's a whole bunch of reasons for that, and I've talked about that plenty of times, but I'm not here to make every single Call of Duty fan cry. I also want some of these XDefiant fans to rejoice without gooch licking, alright? Because I know some of these XDefiant fans are kind of similar to the Call of Duty fans, where if you have anything negative to say about XDefiant, I mean, good God almighty, I mean, I guess gooch licking just so happens to be universal, not just to Call of Duty. It just so happens that on Call of Duty, the gooch lickers just so happen to be worse. Now, by the time Season 1 comes out for any of these Call of Duty games, the player count is obviously going to peak a little bit. It's going to go back up, but it's never going to reach the peak of the launch, and that is a fact. The only time that this has not been the case was back in MW 2019, and before a lot of you people think I'm gassing up MW 2019, let me just remind you, the worst multiplayer experience of all time in Call of Duty. But in MW 2019, something crazy happened post-launch, and that was the addition, the reveal of Warzone. This thing dropped like a bomb, alright? Warzone just massive boom all over the place. Wherever you looked, just booming with Warzone. Other than that, however, by the 1 month mark, all of these games seemingly die off significantly. In XDefiant, this number is still increasing. Now, you guys might remember I posted a video about this a long time ago. It took XDefiant about 2 weeks to hit 10 million players, guys. And after another couple of weeks or so, another million on top of that. Now, obviously, the increase rate drops off significantly, but that doesn't mean that there isn't more people playing still. And of course, there's going to be a slowdown after the game is launched, but what is highly impressive is the fact that this has not dropped. Okay, the player count has not dipped below 10 million. It is still increasing, and by the time Season 1 comes out, it's going to get even bigger. And I highly expect by Season 1 that this number actually increases even more. I don't think the peak of XDefiant is even here yet, but before every single Call of Duty fan exits off the video and thinks I'm gooch licking XDefiant, and before all of these XDefiant fanboys start BMing in the comments, let me just bring everybody back down to earth. I am not saying XDefiant is the greatest game of all time. I'm not calling it the Call of Duty killer right now. What I'm calling it is an impressive game for what it is compared to Call of Duty, because you would assume that Call of Duty is still blowing this game out of the water. But as Call of Duty's numbers decrease over time, XDefiant is still increasing. Now, I don't think that's going to stay the same throughout the life cycle for XDefiant. In fact, I do think Season 1 is going to be the peak. The reason for this is because love or hate XDefiant, love or hate Call of Duty, you have to admit, for how enjoyable XDefiant is, there's still some glaring issues, and that's something that we do need to talk about. Alright, I'm still gonna bring up some of the issues that I've been talking about when it comes to XDefiant. Things such as the netcode, the hit registration, dying around corners, some of the lag in servers sometimes can be a little choppy, a little iffy. Not as bad as COD, but it still exists. I think the progression needs to be improved a little bit. I think we definitely need more camos past gold, even if it is a tougher grind, even if it is a longer grind at the end of the day. The change that they made recently regarding the weapon progression, it's been such a positive influence on the game, and I do think that contributes to how many people are still playing the game. But when that grind is totally and completely finished, I think there needs to be some more things to do. I know Prestige mode is coming in soon, so I'm hoping we see some crazy rewards per prestige. If all of those things can happen, if we can see some changes to the netcode and some of these other glaring issues, and the movement can be worked on a little bit and the fluidity is a little bit smoother, then maybe the drop off post season 1 won't be as drastic as I think. With that said, as a free to play game, every time there's a new season, I think the increase per season is still going to be greater than every single season that comes out in Call of Duty, because if you wanted to try out Call of Duty every single season, you had to have paid some money for it. In XDefiant, it's free to play, and I do think that contributes to the way that the player count has actually increased over time rather than decreased as of right now. So to the COD Gooch lickers, there's no need to cry in the comments anymore. Don't worry, I see all of you guys, alright? And trust me, there's some surprising people in there crying. XDefiant does have issues that I do think will hold it back, and have been holding it back this entire time. With all that being said though, we're not gonna sit here and pretend like this occurrence is not deserved by XDefiant. These developers are actually doing their job. They're doing it pretty efficiently, and for what the game is, this is a crazy impressive achievement. You would expect this sort of thing in Call of Duty, where over time, there's more and more and more people playing. Unfortunately, that's just not the reality of the situation. We know how Call of Duty is post-launch. People want to talk about, oh, Sledgehammer Games, the best live service ever. No, man, if that were the case, the numbers would gradually increase over time. That's how live service is supposed to work. Now, if your launch wasn't crap, then maybe the drop-off wouldn't have been so drastic and we wouldn't have to play catch-up for an entire year straight before the next COD comes out. And by the way, that is also what contributes to these numbers not being so impressive for COD, because every single year there is a new peak because a new game comes out every single year. Unfortunately, that also contributes to the fact that these launches are sometimes not very good whatsoever. Black Ops 6, I don't know how that game's going to launch. I predict it's going to be a lot better and smoother than the last 4 or 5 CODs because they took 4 years to develop it, so our expectations naturally need to be higher. If you meet those naturally high expectations, then yes, I do think that game would last a little bit longer than the other CODs, and as a result, I think Black Ops 6 would outdo XDefiant severely, as it should. Don't get this twisted, guys. Even though I think Black Ops 6 is going to blow XDefiant out of the water, it's literally supposed to. Not only is that the way that Call of Duty should be going against its own competitors, there's significantly more resources and money and budget and development going into Call of Duty every single year, but on top of that, XDefiant, this is its first title. But my favorite part about all of this, with the news of XDefiant Season 1 coming around the corner, and with XDefiant seemingly having more accolades as time passes, I predict that the Call of Duty developers with Sledgehammer Games right now in MW 2019 Part 3, I predict they're going to strap up the boots and start giving us a little bit more content, more efficient content, and hopefully they stream it along a little bit better than they have this entire time. You want to talk about live service? I think their live service has actually improved ever since this whole news with XDefiant has come out a year ago. Now when Black Ops 6 comes out, and I'm hoping it outdoes XDefiant in terms of enjoyability, I expect XDefiant to also improve in a competitive way to match, if not beat, Black Ops 6. At the end of the day, if those two things are happening at the same time, it's no longer about who's on Call of Duty side, who's on XDefiant side. If you are a fan of FPS games, you are winning at the end of the day, and that is exactly what this whole thing should be about. But that's gonna do it for me today, guys. I'm curious to know what you guys think about all this. Are you surprised by XDefiant's numbers actually increasing over time? Let me know down in the comments below, and if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notifications to stay up to date with my newest videos. And yeah, guys, it's been the boy Fooly. Have yourselves a good one. I'm out of here. Toodles.